The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across half a kilometer of polished stone and floating platforms. Ambassador Jakrell of the Vrotix Collective stood at the center of it all. His forearms spread wide in what his species considered a gesture of profound confusion. Around him, holographic displays showed the same message repeated in 17 different languages. Each one said the same thing. No, thank you. The humans had declined. Again. Jakrell turned to face the assembled representatives from 43 different species, each one watching him with their own unique expression of disbelief. The Karathi delegate had all 6 of her eye stalks pointed directly at him. The crystalline Thex ambassador was literally vibrating with confusion, sending small chiming sounds across the chamber. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had operated on a simple principle. When a new species achieved faster-than-light travel, they were contacted. They were shown the wonders of galactic civilization. They were offered technology, trade routes, cultural exchange, and protection. In return, they joined the Council, contributed their resources, and became part of something greater than themselves. Every single species had accepted. Some negotiated better terms than others. Some took longer to decide, but they all said yes. Eventually, the humans were different. Jakrell pulled up the communication logs on his personal display. 6 months of increasingly desperate attempts to establish proper diplomatic relations. The first message had been simple. Welcome to the galactic community. We wish to meet with your leaders. The human response had been polite but firm. Thank you for your message. We appreciate the contact. However, we must respectfully decline any formal diplomatic relations at this time. We wish you well. Jakrell had assumed it was a translation error. No species declined first contact. It was unthinkable. He had sent another message, this time offering specific benefits. Advanced medical technology, clean energy solutions, faster-than-light communication systems that would connect their entire species instantly. The humans had declined again. Thank you. But we prefer to develop our own solutions. We are not interested in joining the Galactic Council at this time. That was when Jakrell had started to worry. He had consulted the Council's historical records. In 10,000 years of expansion, no species had ever refused contact. Some had been aggressive and needed to be carefully managed. Others had been primitive and required slow integration. But refusal, that was new. He had tried everything. He sent gifts of rare minerals and precious artworks from a dozen different civilizations. The humans returned them untouched with a polite note saying they could not accept such valuable items. He offered trade agreements that would make Earth one of the wealthiest planets in known space. The humans said they were happy with their current economic system. He even offered them a seat on the Council itself, something that usually took new species decades to earn. The humans had responded within an hour. While we are honored by the offer, we must decline. We are focusing on internal development and are not seeking external political entanglements. Now, 6 months later, Jakrell stood before the full council with nothing to show for his efforts except a growing sense of dread. The Karathi delegate spoke first, her voice carrying across the chamber through the translation matrix. This makes no sense. What do they want? Jakrell's primary arms spread in a gesture of helplessness. They want to be left alone. The Thex ambassador's chiming grew louder. No species wants to be left alone. Connection is survival. Isolation is death. This is fundamental truth. The humans do not seem to share that view, Jakrell replied. He pulled up another display, this one showing human space. In 6 months, they had established 14 new colonies across 7 different star systems. They had built orbital stations around 3 gas giants and were mining asteroids in systems the Council had not even surveyed yet. They were expanding. Fast. And they were doing it all on their own. Vortan military advisor stepped forward, his scaled face creased with concern. Their technology, it should not be this advanced. They only achieved FTL 8 years ago. Our models predict they should still be struggling with basic interstellar travel. Instead, their ships are faster than our cargo vessels. Their weapons are crude but effective. Their encryption is unbreakable. Jakrell felt a chill run down his spine. He had noticed that too. The humans had developed everything themselves. While the Council species had shared knowledge and built on each other's achievements for millennia, the humans had started from scratch. And somehow they were keeping pace. The Council chamber fell silent. Finally, the eldest member spoke. The Archon of the Kalesh Empire was 1,200 years old and had been part of the council for most of his life. His voice was quiet but carried weight that made everyone listen. "What are they afraid of?" he asked. Jakrell blinked all four of his eyes in succession, a sign of deep thought among his people. "I do not believe they are afraid, Archon. I believe they are suspicious of what? Of us." The chamber erupted in protest and disbelief. The council was the greatest achievement of galactic civilization. They had ended wars, cured diseases, and brought prosperity to billions. What was there to be suspicious about? But Jakrell was already pulling up another file. "Our intelligence agents finally managed to intercept some human communications. They are heavily encrypted, but we decoded fragments. The humans have been studying us." He displayed the translated text across the main screen. Words and phrases jumped out. Power imbalance, technology dependence, limited sovereignty. Client states, the humans had not just declined the council's offer. They had analyzed it, dissected it, and found it wanting. The Karathi delegate leaned forward. "They think we are trying to control them." The Thex ambassador's chiming turned discordant. "But we offer them everything. Protection, resources, knowledge. How is that control?" Jakrell felt something he had never experienced in his 40 years of diplomatic service. Self-doubt. The council's system had worked for 10,000 years. Every species benefited. The strong helped the weak. The advanced helped the primitive. Everyone prospered together. But looking at it through human eyes, he could see how it might look different. The council controlled the trade routes. The council controlled access to advanced technology. The council controlled military protection. New species joined and became part of the system. But they never truly caught up to the older members. They remained forever junior partners. The humans had seen this. And they had said no. The Archon spoke again. "What happens now?" Jakrell had been dreading this question. According to our models, one of three things. They collapse from isolation and beg to join us. They stagnate without access to our knowledge and fade into irrelevance. Or they continue to expand and eventually become a threat. And which do you predict? Jakrell looked at the display showing human expansion. At the new colonies springing up like flowers after rain. At the ships that moved faster every month. At the encryption that their best code breakers could not crack. I predict the third option, Archon. The council chamber fell silent again. For 10,000 years they had been the center of galactic civilization. They had set the rules. They had controlled the flow of technology and knowledge. Every species had joined their system because there was no alternative. Now, for the first time, a species had chosen to create their own alternative. The Archon stood, his ancient frame somehow still commanding respect. Send another message to the humans. Tell them we respect their decision. Tell them our borders are open if they ever change their minds. And tell them we hope to meet them as equals one day. Jakrell bowed deeply. As you command, Archon. But as he left the chamber to draft the message, he could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The council had always been the only game in town. The only path to the stars. The only way forward. The humans had proven that wrong. And if one species could reject the council and thrive, what would stop others from trying? For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a question it had never had to answer. What happens when someone says no? Jakrell did not know the answer, but he suspected they were all about to find out. 3 months had passed since the Council sent their respectful message to humanity. The response had been polite, brief, and completely unhelpful. Thank you for your understanding. We continue to prefer independent development. We wish the Council prosperity. Captain Velrus of the Karathi Observation Fleet stared at the holographic display in her command center and tried to understand what she was seeing. Her ship, the Watchful Eye, hung in deep space several light years from the nearest human colony. The Council had ordered her to maintain distance, to observe without interfering, to learn what they could about this strange species that refused to join galactic civilization. But observing the humans was proving impossible. 2 weeks ago, her science officer had detected something unusual near the human colony world of New Terra, a massive construction project in orbit. The readings suggested some kind of defensive platform, but the energy signatures were strange. Different from anything in the Council databases, Velrus had ordered a closer approach, just to observe, just to collect data. Her ship was equipped with the best stealth technology the Council could provide. They should have been completely invisible to the humans. They had gotten within 5 light minutes of New Terra when the humans found them. A human ship had appeared on their sensors without warning. No acceleration signature, no engine trace. It was just suddenly there, matching their course and speed perfectly. The communication that followed was polite but firm. This is the UHSV Guardian. You are approaching human territorial space. We must ask you to maintain your current distance. We have established a perimeter that we request all vessels respect. Velrus had tried to explain. We mean no harm. We are simply observing. The Council has no hostile intent toward humanity. The human captain had responded with what sounded like genuine warmth. We appreciate that, Captain, and we bear no ill will toward the Council. But we value our privacy. Please turn back. We will escort you to neutral space. It was not a request. The human ship had maintained perfect position alongside the watchful eye for 6 hours, until they were well beyond the perimeter. Then it had vanished as suddenly as it appeared. That had been the first incident. There had been 3 more since then. Now Velrus stood before the Council's Intelligence Committee, trying to explain why her state-of-the-art observation fleet had collected almost no useful information in 3 months. Ambassador Jaquel listened to her report with growing concern. His forearms were folded against his chest in a posture of deep worry. How do they detect your ships? Your stealth systems are among the best in the galaxy. Velrus spread her 6 eye stalks in a gesture of complete bafflement. We do not know, Ambassador. Our engineers have reviewed every system. There should be no way for them to see us. Yet they find us every time, and they find us quickly. The Thek's intelligence officer chimed in, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. This is not possible. Detection technology has limits. We understand these limits. The humans are too new to have surpassed them. Unless they developed their detection technology along different principles, Jaquel said quietly. We assumed they would follow the same technological path as every other species. What if they did not? The committee fell silent. It was an uncomfortable thought. The Council's technology had been refined over 10,000 years. Every species contributed their knowledge, and the collective wisdom of 43 civilizations had created the most advanced technology in known space. But it was all built on the same foundations. The same physical principles, the same mathematical models. What if the humans had started from different foundations? What else have you learned? Jaquel asked. Velrus pulled up a star chart. Human expansion continues. They have established 4 more colonies in the past month. Their construction speed is remarkable. They can build an orbital station in weeks, not months. Their ships are getting faster. 6 months ago, their best vessels could barely match our cargo haulers. Now they are approaching military-grade speeds. The Vortan military advisor leaned forward. Have you observed any weaknesses? Any vulnerabilities? Velrus hesitated. That is the problem, General. We cannot get close enough to see. Every time we try to observe their military capabilities, their colonies, their infrastructure, they politely escort us away. We know they have weapons, but we do not know what kind or how effective. We know they have defenses, but we cannot analyze them. They have created a complete information blackout around their space. The General's scales rippled in frustration. What about infiltration? Surely we can place agents on their worlds. The Thek's intelligence officer chimed 3 sharp notes. Impossible. Human biology is unique enough that we cannot pass unnoticed. We tried to insert cultural observers posing as traitors. The humans were polite but firm. They do not accept visitors. All communication is conducted remotely. All trade offers are declined. They have built an impenetrable wall around their entire civilization. Jaquel felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained stability through information. They knew everything about everyone. Every species that joined shared their knowledge, their technology, their cultures. The free flow of information was what held the Council together. The humans had cut off that flow completely. They were a black hole in the Council's knowledge network, and they were expanding rapidly inside that darkness. What about their culture? Jaquel asked. Surely they produce entertainment, literature, art. Can we not learn about them through those channels? Velrus pulled up another display. We have intercepted some human transmissions. They do produce cultural content, music, visual media, written works. But their encryption is beyond anything we can break. We can detect the transmissions, but we cannot decode them. Everything is locked behind security protocols that our best cryptographers say should not even be possible. The committee sat in stunned silence. A species less than a decade into space travel should not have unbreakable encryption. They should not have detection systems that defeated Council stealth technology. They should not be expanding at a rate that matched or exceeded species that had been spacefaring for centuries. This makes no sense, the Vortan general said. They are advancing too quickly. Technology does not work this way. You cannot skip steps. You cannot develop everything at once. Unless you focus all your resources on it, Jakrell said. Think about it. Every species that joins the Council relaxes. They receive technology from others. They trade for what they need. They specialize in certain fields and rely on partners for the rest. But the humans, they have no partners. They must develop everything themselves. Perhaps that desperation drives innovation we have not seen in millennia. The Archon's voice cut through the discussion. He had been silent until now, listening carefully to everything. The question is not how they advance so quickly. The question is what they want. Everyone turned to face the ancient Kalesh leader. A species does not isolate itself without reason, the Archon continued. They do not refuse all contact, reject all offers, and build walls around their civilization unless they have a goal. What do the humans want that requires such complete independence? Jakrell had been pondering this question for months. Freedom, perhaps? They wished to chart their own course without external influence. They had freedom, the Thex officer chimed. We offered them membership, not slavery. They could have participated as equals, could they? The Archon asked. Or would they have become dependent on our technology, our trade, our protection? Would they have remained truly free, or would they have become one more spoke in our wheel? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Jakrell realized with growing discomfort that the Archon was right. No species that joined the Council ever left. They became integrated, dependent, part of the system. Was that freedom? Or was it a very comfortable cage? The humans clearly thought it was a cage, and they wanted no part of it. What do you recommend, Archon? The Vortan general asked. The Archon was quiet for a long moment. I recommend we accept their choice. We respect their boundaries. We stop trying to observe them, infiltrate them, or change their minds. We let them be, and if they become a threat, the general pressed, then we will deal with that threat when it emerges. But I will not turn a peaceful species into an enemy because we are uncomfortable with their independence. The committee erupted in debate. Some agreed with the Archon's wisdom. Others argued that ignoring a potential threat was foolish. The discussion went on for hours, but Jakrell barely heard it. He was thinking about the human expansion, about their rapid technological advancement, about their complete isolation from galactic society. And he was thinking about what would happen if other species saw what the humans had done. If they saw that it was possible to refuse the Council and thrive. If they saw that independence was an option. The Council had maintained stability for 10,000 years by being the only game in town. By being inevitable, by being the only path forward. The humans had proven that was a lie, and Jakrell suspected that this quiet rebellion in the darkness of human space was going to change everything. The Council had decided to take a harder approach. Not military action, they assured themselves. Just economic pressure. Just a gentle reminder that isolation had costs. Ambassador Jakrell had argued against it. So had the Archon. But they had been outvoted. The majority of the Council believed that the humans were simply being stubborn, that they did not understand what they were giving up, that a demonstration of what they were missing would bring them to the negotiating table. So they had established the blockade. It was not a military blockade. No one wanted to start a war. It was an economic measure. The Council controlled access to the richest resource zones in the galaxy. Rare elements, exotic matter, materials necessary for advanced technology. They simply denied the humans access to these zones. The theory was simple. Humans needed these resources to continue their rapid expansion. Without them, their growth would stall. They would realize they needed the Council after all. They would come asking for trade agreements, membership, integration. The theory lasted exactly 3 weeks. Jakrell received the report from Captain Velrus with a sinking feeling in his chest. The humans had not slowed down. They had not asked for access to the restricted zones. Instead, they had simply gone around the blockade. Human mining ships had appeared in asteroid fields the Council had never bothered with. Fields that were supposedly depleted or not worth the effort. The humans were extracting resources from places the Council had written off as unviable. And they were doing it efficiently. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what the humans were doing with those resources. According to Velris's sensors, they were synthesizing the rare materials they needed, taking common elements and transmuting them into exotic matter. It was a process the Council had theorized about, but never made economically viable. The humans had made it viable. The blockade has failed, Jakrell reported to the Emergency Council session. The humans do not need our resources. They have found their own. The Vortan general was not ready to give up. Then we increase the pressure. We establish a military presence near their space. Not threatening. Just a show of force. A reminder that there are consequences to refusing cooperation. The Archon's voice was sharp with warning. That is a mistake. But the general was already pulling up tactical displays. We send a fleet to the edge of human space. 10 capital ships. 20 support vessels. We make sure they see us. We make sure they understand that while we prefer peace, we are prepared for other outcomes. You are making a mistake, the Archon repeated. We will not attack, the general said. This is simply diplomacy. Diplomacy backed by strength, the vote was called. The majority approved the show of force. Jakrell voted against it, but his voice was lost in the chorus of those who believed the humans needed to be taught respect. 3 days later, Fleet Admiral Terex of the Vortan Empire led his armada to the perimeter of human space. 30 of the Council's finest warships. Enough firepower to level a planet. Enough force to make even the most stubborn species reconsider their position. They positioned themselves 1 light hour from the human colony world of Kepler Station. Close enough to be detected. Close enough to send a message. Far enough to claim they were not being aggressive. The human response came within minutes. Admiral Terex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The humans had not sent a diplomatic message. They had not asked why a council fleet was at their doorstep. They had simply responded with overwhelming force. 50 human warships had appeared around Kepler Station, not emerging from FTL, not arriving from somewhere else. They had simply appeared. One moment the scans were clear. The next moment, 50 massive vessels surrounded the colony. Defense platforms that had been invisible suddenly lit up across the system. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Every asteroid, every piece of orbital infrastructure, every satellite seemed to have weapons built into it. Kepler Station was not just a colony. It was a fortress, and the weapons were pointed at his fleet. Then the message came. A single voice transmission from the lead human vessel. This is Admiral Chen of the United Human Space Fleet. Your presence is noted. We have no hostile intent toward the Council, and we hope the Council has no hostile intent toward us. However, we must make something absolutely clear. We ask politely to be left alone. We have been patient with your observation attempts, your economic pressure, and now this show of force. We are done being patient. Terex tried to respond, but the human admiral cut him off. You see the defenses around this system. What you do not see are the defenses we have not activated yet. What you do not see are the ships we have not revealed. What you do not see is the full extent of our military capability. We have chosen not to show you these things because we are not a warlike people. We simply wish to be left alone. Terex felt his scales ripple with fear. His sensors were going crazy. Energy readings that made no sense. Weapon systems based on principles his computers could not identify. He had brought 30 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy to intimidate a young species. Instead, he felt like a child who had wandered into a predator's den. Do not mistake our restraint for weakness, Admiral Chen continued. Do not mistake our preference for peace as inability to wage war. We do not want to fight you, but if you force us to defend ourselves, you will learn exactly what humanity is capable of. And I promise you, Admiral, you will not like the lesson. A pause. Then the human admiral's voice softened slightly. We bear the Council no ill will. We understand you are confused by our choices. We understand you feel threatened by what you do not understand. But we will not be bullied into submission. We will not be intimidated into joining your system. Leave us in peace and we will leave you in peace. But push us again and we will push back. Hard. The human ships maintained their positions. The defense platforms kept their weapons locked on the Council fleet. And Terex realized with absolute certainty that if he gave the order to attack, his entire armada would be destroyed. He gave the order to withdraw. The journey back to Council space was silent. His officers were too shocked to speak. His tactical analysts were still trying to understand what they had seen. The energy signatures, the weapons systems, the sheer number of hidden defenses. The humans had not just caught up to Council military technology. They had surpassed it. When Terex delivered his report to the Council, the chamber fell into stunned silence. Jaquel listened with a mixture of vindication and horror. He had warned them. The Archon had warned them, but no one had listened. "This is impossible," the Thek's military advisor chimed. "Their technology is years behind ours. How can they have weapons we cannot identify? Defenses we cannot counter? Because they developed everything themselves," the Archon said quietly. "We have been building on the same technological foundation for 10,000 years. We understand those principles completely, but they limit us." The humans started from scratch. They had no preconceptions, no established ways of doing things. They tried approaches we never considered because we already had solutions that worked, and some of those approaches turned out to be better. The Vortan general was pale beneath his scales. "What do we do now?" The Archon stood, his ancient frame somehow more commanding than the entire military force that had just been humiliated. "Now we do what we should have done from the beginning. We leave them alone. We respect their wishes. We stop treating them like children who need to be taught a lesson, and start treating them like the independent, powerful civilization they have become." "And if they expand into our space?" the general asked. "If they become aggressive, then we will deal with that threat when it emerges. But right now, the only aggression has been ours. We blockaded them. We tried to intimidate them. We sent warships to their doorstep. And yet they did not attack us. They simply made it clear that attacking them would be a mistake." The Archon looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "For 10,000 years we have believed that we are the peak of civilization, that our way is the only way, that any species refusing to join us is foolish or hostile. The humans have shown us the arrogance of that belief. They do not need us. They do not want us, and they are strong enough to enforce that choice. So what do we learn from this? We learn humility. We learn that there is more than one path to greatness. We learn that our system, as successful as it has been, is not the only option. And most importantly, we learn to respect those who choose a different path." The council chamber remained silent as the Archon sat down. Jaquel looked at the faces around him and saw fear, confusion, and shame. They had poked the sleeping giant, and the giant had made it very clear that it did not appreciate being disturbed. But as Jaquel reviewed the tactical data from Terex's encounter, he felt something else alongside his concern. Respect. The humans had not wanted to fight. They had made that clear. But they had also made it clear that they could fight if necessary. And they would win. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had met a species they could not control, could not manipulate, and could not defeat. A species that had looked at everything the Council offered and said no thank you. And Jaquel realized that this might be the best thing that had ever happened to the Council. Because for the first time in millennia, they were forced to question their assumptions, to examine their methods, to wonder if the 6 months had passed since the incident at Kepler Station. The Council had honored the Archon's directive and left human space alone. No more observation fleets, no more economic pressure, no more shows of force. They simply watched from a distance as humanity continued to expand, develop, and thrive in complete isolation. But Ambassador Jaquel could not let it go. The human refusal gnawed at him, not because he wanted to control them or force them into the Council, but because he genuinely did not understand. What had they seen that made them so certain that isolation was better than cooperation? So he did something technically against Council policy. He sent an unofficial personal message to the humans. Not through official channels, not with the weight of the Council behind it, just one diplomat to another. "I am Ambassador Jaquel. I speak only for myself, not for the Council. I do not seek to change your mind or convince you to join us. I simply want to understand. Why did you refuse us? What did we do wrong? What did you see that we missed?" He expected no response. The humans had ignored every previous attempt at communication. But 3 days later, he received a reply, a request for a private meeting. One human representative willing to speak with him off the record. The meeting was arranged at a neutral location, an abandoned station in unclaimed space, halfway between human territory and council borders. Jakrell went alone as requested. He told no one where he was going. The human who met him was named Dr. Sarah Chen. She was an older woman, her hair streaked with gray, her face lined with age. But her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She greeted him with a warm smile that seemed genuine. "Thank you for coming, Ambassador, and thank you for reaching out personally rather than through official channels. It makes this conversation much easier." Jakrell settled into the chair that had been provided for his unique anatomy. "I must confess, Doctor, I half expected this to be a trap, or for you to not show up at all." Dr. Chen laughed softly. "We are not hostile, Ambassador. We simply value our independence. Those are not the same thing." "Then help me understand," Jakrell said. "The Council offers peace, prosperity, knowledge, and protection. We have created the most stable civilization in galactic history. Why would any species refuse that?" Dr. Chen pulled up a holographic display. On it were images of dozens of different species, all members of the Council. "Because you do not offer what you think you offer, Ambassador." She gestured to the first image, the Vorlani. They joined the Council 3,000 years ago. Brilliant engineers, specialists in energy systems. "Tell me, Ambassador, when was the last time the Vorlani developed a new technology that was not based on Council foundations?" Jakrell hesitated. "I do not know. 2,700 years ago," Dr. Chen said. "Shortly after they joined, they received Council technology, advanced systems that solved all their energy problems. And why would they innovate when the Council had already done the work? Why take risks when someone else had the answers?" She moved to the next image. The Calith explorers, incredible navigators before joining the Council. Now they use Council star charts, Council jump calculations, Council everything. They have not discovered a new star system in 1,500 years. Why explore when the Council has already mapped everything? Image after image, species after species. Each one had joined the Council with unique strengths, unique cultures, unique approaches to problems, and each one had slowly given up their uniqueness. Not because the Council forced them, but because it was easier to use what was already available than to develop something new. "You call it cooperation?" Dr. Chen said quietly. "We call it technological stagnation, cultural homogenization, the slow death of innovation." Jakrell felt something cold settle in his chest. "But the Council has achieved so much. 10,000 years of peace, billions of lives improved. And how much has your technology advanced in those 10,000 years?" Dr. Chen asked. "Not improved. Not refined. Actually fundamentally advanced." Jakrell opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He had been about to cite dozens of improvements. Better engines, stronger materials, more efficient systems. But fundamental breakthroughs? New principles? Revolutionary discoveries? When was the last time the Council had achieved something truly new? "We studied your civilization extensively before you made contact," Dr. Chen continued. "We examined your technological progression over the past 5,000 years. Do you know what we found? A flat line. You refined existing technology. You made things better. But you have not made anything new." She pulled up more data. "Your fastest ships today are only 15% faster than they were 3,000 years ago. Your energy generation is 12% more efficient. Your medical technology has improved survival rates by 8%. These are good numbers, Ambassador. But they are incremental. They are refinements of existing systems, not breakthroughs. Because we have achieved a stable system," Jakrell argued, though his voice lacked conviction. "Why change what works?" "Because stagnation leads to vulnerability," Dr. Chen said. "Because when every species follows the same technological path, they all have the same weaknesses. Because diversity of approach is survival. And your system, for all its benefits, has eliminated that diversity." Jakrell was quiet for a long moment. "Is that why you have such different technology? Why our sensors cannot track your ships? Why your encryption is unbreakable? Because you developed everything from different principles?" Dr. Chen nodded. "We started with different assumptions, different mathematical frameworks, different physical models. Some of our approaches were dead ends. Many were worse than Council technology. But some were better. And because we were forced to develop everything ourselves, we tried things you never considered. Not because we are smarter, Ambassador, but because we had no choice." She leaned forward. "Humanity has fought wars, Ambassador. Terrible wars. We have made horrific mistakes. Our history is soaked in blood and suffering. But we learned from it. We learned that dependence on others is dangerous, that giving up sovereignty for security leads to neither, that short-term convenience leads to long-term weakness. So when you offered us your technology, your trade, your protection, we saw what you meant as gifts for what they really were. Chains. Comfortable chains, perhaps. Golden chains, but chains nonetheless. And we decided we would rather struggle on our own than be comfortable but dependent. Jakrell felt the weight of understanding settling on him. We never meant to control you. We genuinely wanted to help. I believe you, Dr. Chen said kindly, but intent does not change outcome. Your system, however benevolent, creates dependence, and dependence eliminates growth. Every species in the Council is better off than they would have been alone in the short term. But in the long term, they have given up the ability to determine their own future. Then what do you propose? Jakrell asked. Should the Council disband? Should we tear down 10,000 years of civilization? No, Dr. Chen said. But perhaps you should reconsider how you approach new species. Perhaps instead of offering them a place in your system, you offer them partnership. True partnership where both sides contribute as equals. Where dependence is not the goal. Where cultural and technological diversity is preserved and celebrated. She stood, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Humanity does not hate the Council, Ambassador. We respect what you have built. But we will not join a system that would make us just another cog in your machine. If you want a relationship with us, it must be as equals. As true allies, not as junior partners waiting to catch up. Jakrell took her hand carefully. His species did not normally engage in physical contact with other species, but the gesture felt right. I cannot promise the Council will change. They have operated this way for 10,000 years. Then perhaps it is time for change, Dr. Chen said. The galaxy is vast, Ambassador. There is room for more than one approach to civilization. Perhaps the Council's greatest achievement could be learning to coexist with other systems rather than absorbing them. As Jakrell flew back to Council space, his mind churned with everything he had learned. Dr. Chen had not been hostile. She had been honest, brutally, uncomfortably honest, and everything she had said rang true. The Council had created stability, but they had also created stagnation. They had brought peace, but they had eliminated innovation. They had united the galaxy, but they had homogenized it in the process. The humans had seen this. They had studied the Council's history and reached the logical conclusion. Joining would mean giving up their independence, their unique perspective, their ability to forge their own path, and they had decided that was too high a price to pay. When Jakrell presented his findings to the Archon in private, the old Kalesh leader listened quietly. When the ambassador finished, the Archon was silent for a long time. The humans are right, the Archon finally said. We have created a gilded cage. We never intended to, but that is what our system has become. And perhaps we needed someone to refuse us to make us see it. What do? Jakrell asked. We learn, the Archon said. We adapt and we wait. Because I suspect that when the humans are ready, they will show us a better way. Not... The emergency signal reached every corner of Council space simultaneously. Red priority. Immediate response required. All military assets to mobilize. Ambassador Jakrell felt his blood run cold. In 10,000 years, the Council had only issued a red priority alert 3 times. Each time marked an existential threat to galactic civilization. The Zenthari swarm had breached the outer defense perimeter. For the past 3 centuries, the Council had maintained a line of fortified systems between civilized space and the territories controlled by the swarm. The Zenthari were not a species anyone could negotiate with. They were a biological nightmare from another galaxy, consuming everything in their path, converting matter into more of themselves, spreading like a cancer across the stars. The Council had contained them. Barely, at great cost. Entire fleets stationed permanently at the border, weapons platforms that stretched across multiple star systems, a military commitment that strained Council resources to their limit. And now the swarm had broken. Through Jakrell stood in the emergency council session and watched the tactical display with growing horror. 3 major breach points, hundreds of swarm vessels pouring through. The defense fleet was falling back, taking heavy casualties. At current projections, the swarm would reach inhabited systems within weeks. The Vortan general was coordinating the military response, but even he looked shaken. We need reinforcements, Every available ship, every reserve fleet. This is everything we feared. The Thek's military advisor was calculating frantically. Even if we mobilize everything, we may not have enough. The swarm adapted to our weapons. They are using different tactics. Our standard defenses are less effective than predicted. The Archon's voice cut through the chaos. Contact the humans. The chamber fell silent. Every representative turned to stare at the ancient Kalesh leader. The humans have made it clear they want no part of council affairs, the Karathi delegate said carefully. They have also made it clear they are not hostile, the Archon replied. This is not a council affair. This is a threat to every living being in this galaxy. If the swarm is not stopped, they will eventually reach human space as well. They have a vested interest in helping, and if they refuse, the general asked. Then we fight alone, the Archon said. But we must ask. Not as the council demanding cooperation, but as one civilization asking another for help in a time of desperate need. Jakrel found himself speaking before he consciously decided to. I will go. I will deliver the message personally. The message was simple. No demands, no offers of payment or alliance. Just the truth. The swarm had broken through. The council was mobilizing everything they had. But they needed help. Would humanity consider joining the fight? Jakrel sent the message to the same contact who had arranged his meeting with Dr. Chen. He expected to wait days for a response. Perhaps weeks. Humanity was under no obligation to help. They had made their isolation clear. The response came in 4 hours. Human fleet groups are mobilizing. Provide coordinates for the breach points. We will be there in 3 days. Jakrel stared at the message in disbelief. Just like that. No negotiations, no conditions. Just an agreement to help. He immediately sent the tactical data and waited. 3 days later, the humans arrived at the first breach point. Admiral Terex was commanding the defense fleet when the human ships emerged from FTL. He had been fighting the swarm for 72 hours straight. His fleet was down to 60% strength. They were losing. Then the tactical display lit up with new contacts. Hundreds of them. Human vessels of all sizes, from massive capital ships to small fast attack craft. They did not ask for permission to engage. They did not wait for council coordination. They simply entered the battle. And everything changed. The human weapons were unlike anything the swarm had encountered. While council weapons relied on energy beams and plasma projectiles, human weapons used principles that Terex could not identify. Kinetic systems that bent space. Energy weapons that worked on quantum levels. Missiles that seemed to predict swarm movement before it happened. The swarm had adapted to fight council technology over centuries of conflict. They had no adaptations for human technology because they had never encountered it before. Swarm vessels that had shrugged off council weapons were torn apart by human fire. Swarm tactics that had proven effective for 300 years failed against human strategies. Within 6 hours, the tide of the battle had turned. Within 12, the swarm was in retreat. Admiral Chen contacted Terex directly. Admiral, we need council forces to maintain pressure on the left flank. We will push through the center. Once we break their formation, we can seal the breach point. It was not a request for permission. It was a tactical suggestion between equals. Terex found himself following it without hesitation. The combined fleet executed the maneuver perfectly. The swarm formation collapsed. And 30 hours after the humans arrived, the breach point was sealed. The same scenario played out at the other 2 breach points. Human fleet groups arrived. The battle turned. The swarm retreated. For the first time in 3 centuries, the council had not just held the line against the swarm. They had driven them back. When the crisis had passed, Jakrel found himself once again meeting with Dr. Chen, this time on a human vessel at her invitation. The ship's interior was functional but comfortable, very different from the elegant council designs but no less impressive. Why did you help us? Jakrel asked. We have done nothing but try to change you, pressure you, intimidate you. You owe us nothing, Dr. Chen smiled, because the swarm is not a council problem. It is a life problem. We are not isolationist, Ambassador. We are independent. Those are different things. We will not submit to your system, but we will defend life wherever it is threatened. She pulled up tactical data from the battles. Also, our weapons were effective because they were different from yours. If we had joined the council, we would have adopted your weapon systems. We would have followed your tactical doctrines. and we would have been just as vulnerable to the swarm's adaptations. Our independence is what made us useful to you. Jaquel felt the weight of understanding settle on him. All this time, the Council had believed that unity meant everyone using the same systems, the same technology, the same approaches. They had believed that diversity was inefficiency. The humans had proven them wrong. Diversity was strength. Different approaches meant different solutions. What seemed like stubborn isolation had actually preserved humanity's unique perspective and capabilities. And when the crisis came, that uniqueness had saved lives. The Council wants to offer you an alliance, Jaquel said carefully. A real one this time. Not membership. Not integration. True partnership between equals. Dr. Chen considered this. What would that look like? Jaquel had prepared for this conversation. Mutual defense agreements. Open communication channels. Trade on terms both sides agree to. Cultural exchange programs that are optional, not mandatory. And most importantly, complete respect for human sovereignty. You remain independent. You develop as you choose. You follow your own path. But when either side faces a threat, we stand together. No technology sharing. No pressure to adopt Council standards. We would share information if requested, Jaquel said. But no pressure. No expectations. We learned our lesson, Doctor. Your independence is valuable. Not just to you, but to all of us. The galaxy needs different voices, different approaches, different solutions. We nearly lost everything because we forgot that. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. I cannot speak for all of humanity, but I will recommend that we accept, on the terms you described, true partnership, true equality, and complete mutual respect for sovereignty. Jaquel took her hand. The first formal diplomatic gesture between humanity and the Council. Not of submission, not of integration, but of equals choosing to work together while remaining independent. When Jaquel returned to Council space, he found the Archon waiting for him. The old Kalish looked tired but satisfied. The Council has voted, the Archon said. We are implementing reforms. New protocols for how we approach other species. No more assumption that joining us is the only option. No more pressure for technological or cultural integration. We are learning to embrace diversity rather than eliminate it. Will it work? Jaquel asked. The Archon smiled. It will take time. 10,000 years of habit do not change overnight. But the humans showed us what we had become. A system that valued stability over growth, unity over diversity, comfort over innovation. We were stagnating and we did not even realize it. He looked out at the stars. The humans refused all diplomacy. But in doing so, they gave us the most valuable diplomatic gift possible. They held up a mirror and forced us to see ourselves clearly. They challenged our assumptions. They showed us a different way. And when we needed them most, they proved that independence and cooperation are not opposites, that you can stand alone and still stand together. Jaquel thought about the battles, about the human ships fighting alongside Council vessels, about the different technologies, different tactics, different approaches all working together, not because they were the same, but because they were different. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.